As the zoning exists today, yes.
So if density is transferred from our utility area and moved to a different area outside of our utility, what kind of an impact does that have?
Usually pretty small because they're small density transfers. I mean, I don't know that we've felt any impact as a result
I guess
of
I'm
that.
talking specifically of the density that was assigned to the Waterford Estate project. I understand it was a big chunk of that density that was transferred out of the utility and put someplace else in the county. You know anything about it?
I don't. I
Okay.
don't. The third, Joan or some of her staff may know, or maybe Teri, but no.
The county does allow TDUs, transfers of density units, and they may have had a larger density on that parcel than what that developer chose to use, so he had the ability to, I guess,
Get rid of
market
some.
that, maybe gain some
Okay.
costs. So when we look at the long term, looks kind of like this. And each one of these polygon areas is what we call lift station service area. And we look at what we think that density is going to support in the future, and then we assign an EDU value to each component in that map, and then that's how we do our long-term planning. And that's been working out for us real well. Because what we see in some areas where there may be a higher density use, a lot of the commercial industrial use is considerably less than residential. So that offsets. So if one particular area, up zones, it's kind of built into the whole process that there's some extra flexibility in the fact that most of the commercial use is less. Like, for instance, the Walmart parcel that went in on Jones Loop Road is very much less density than what we would assign to those 26 acres if it had developed in another matter, because a lot of it's a parking lot. So we have some areas that help us with the flexibilities when zonings go up and down, and what we've seen over the last 10 years is those values have really come in consistently on target. So this methodology has been working for us. We feel confident that we're on the right path with designing and constructing these future components.
Thank you, Steve.
Get started, thank you.
Thank you.
Get digging
Good
right
job.
now, under the
Good
interstate.
presentation, very comprehensive.
Yes.
Thank you.
While we're getting set up on the Terry Tubbs portion of the meeting, when we talk about annexation, we never, from a utility standpoint, they love it when people are outside the city. Because as utility fund, we make money when they're outside the city. It's everything else that we want to be inside the city. So that's how we look at it.
I understand.
Okay, so we're on the same wavelength.
I think we're all on the same.
It's about the money.
Well, I think too, when they come to the utility department, that's really our first opportunity to start talking to them about annexation.
Yeah, and like we've said many times, there are people out there who don't want to be in the city.
If there was an ordinance, there wouldn't be an issue.
Teri, discussion regarding the use of rock in side yards.
Good morning. For the record, Teri Tubbs, Urban Design. This came up actually as the result of, there was a new single-family home that was constructed. At the final inspection, they had sod all the way around the house. And the code officer in the area noticed that all of a sudden the sod in one side yard was gone, and it had all been, rock had been put in. And with that, when we talked to the property owners, they had issues with it being too shaded, it stayed damp, a lot of ground vegetation doesn't like those conditions, especially if there's foot traffic on it. There is some vegetation that can tolerate it, but it doesn't like foot traffic. So, and they use that side of their house to access some of their equipment, and which is why they had put the loose rock in their side yard. And it's only from the front, architectural front of the house to the rear of the house where they have essentially all rock. And in the pictures, I noticed that the neighbor actually has the same condition. He just has more vegetation in it, so it wasn't that apparent until you were actually right on the property. With that, we did some research into the percolation abilities of the, landscape stone type material, and it actually percolates as well, if not better, than the sod. So the only reason that we had the limitation on the use of the mulches was we were looking at the drainage rates. We also, with some of the wood and other mulches, some of them will float off, which is more of a problem than using rock. Shell isn't going to percolate as well as the loose rock because it can get compacted. And so as we discussed it internally, we said, well, maybe this is something we need to look at because we've seen it on multiple properties where, especially the houses are getting bigger, people are building close to that side yard, and depending on the angle of the sun, some of those side yards just do not get the sunlight needed for the grass to grow. There's several areas within the code where we talk about the inorganic mulch, limiting it to 10% of a required yard. The required yard in a side yard would be essentially that 7.5-foot setback. Certain encroachments are allowed within that. That would be like equipment, AC pads, garbage hides, and that sort of thing is allowed to encroach in that. But it does call for that to be primarily vegetation. Also, in the residential landscaping code, we talk about not using more than 10% of the inorganic mulch in a yard. So we wanted to bring this to council to see if we could work on an amendment to the code that would allow this to be used in the SRO district in these side yards where we're running into that situation.
What is the ground cover exemption area?
That is the historic downtown area that when we do get
Yeah, but
the
aren't we
heavy
just talking about SROs on this one?
rain- Yes,
Okay,
we're just talking SRO.
okay. What,
So this doesn't include PGI?
this,
SROs are Punta
Yeah,
Gorda
not
Isles,
downtown.
Burnt Store Isles, and Burnt Store Meadows.
yeah, because that's
Okay.
what we told the people, that they could have the kind of Florida-friendly ground cover because they were having the water issue.
Mhm, yes.
Looking at this picture, do they have any landscaping in their backyard?
Yes.
I mean, it looks kind of barren from these photos.
Yes, they actually do. It's a very, they have a very large yard there on one of the in-lots on the street. So they have a large, they've got, I didn't think to get the rest of the pictures of the house, but they do. They have trees. There's a landscape bed back there. There actually is a lot of sod in their rear yard because their yard is so big. So based on the size of their overall yard, this is a very small area in their particular instance. Other lots, it might not be that same ratio, but in this particular instance, it is a very small area.
So do you think they're still below the 10% even with this addition?
Not of the 10% of that 7.5 feet that is between the front of the house and the rear of the house, because they have rock in 100% of that required yard.
Terry, could you put up some pictures of the rock so folks can see exactly what we're talking about?
And the house on the left in this particular picture is the neighboring property, but they did have the vegetation, and this is taking from the rear, looking towards the street. That's where I was standing, that particular picture.
Gary?
Yes.
I need to do this. This house, I bet you, is built by the same builder I have. I have a neighbor that has this beautiful tall vegetation. I have even more shade than this. I have an erosion problem. I can't keep any vegetation in there, to me, I mean, I have the exact same doors, the windows, and the whole shop, and and I'm not alone. I'm on an 80 by 120-foot lot. I've got the biggest footprint I can have on it. I encroach all the way to the left with the neighbor that's got the vegetation, and this would be, I think, a very practical and good and also aesthetically acceptable solution for me, so I'm not the only one with this problem.
Kim?
I drove around there, and there's a lot of houses that already have it. Exactly. So just saying.
Tom?
I follow the rules. I thatch my swale.
Right.
Would we limit this to homes that are at the 7.5 foot that are built out, or would it be, if you have 20 feet in between homes, would they be allowed as well, or?
Well, and that's something that we can go through with discussions. When I did mention this to the city engineer, he said as long as we had the sod on, in the front as well as in the rear, so that you didn't have, because rock percolates so well. You wanted to have that vegetation in the rear yard and in the front yard, so limiting it in side yards, it may be a discussion that I need to have a little more in-depth with the city engineer to see if there would be any downside on that, or if we just need to limit it when you have an area.
And do we need to specify what, get into the rock specifications? Because what if somebody wants to put big, when he said rock, and before I looked at the photos, I wondered if it was like, those paver stones or, because people will do that.
Yeah, and we probably do need to be specific, because there are like materials such as shell that are not going to
It
percolate.
needs to be a pea gravel. Pea
Yeah, this
site,
is a landscape
Yeah.
type.
I think we,
I
Standard.
think we need to,
I think we need to specify, I
Yeah.
agree.
Nancy?
But in this case, we already have approved paver walkways to go from the driveway back to
The man door. Mhm.
the door. In those, it's almost like, well, what would make the difference if we were allowed a walkway to even continue further? I mean, I know that we just said no, but,
Well, you-
walking in gravel or in the stone can be shaky, so,
You run into an area because pavers, they have a small pervious factor, but it's not a lot. And the way Punta Gorda Isles, Burnstone Isles are laid out essentially, and when new construction is done, the lots are designed specifically to drain to that area, so that 3 foot on each side of that property line need to be able to drain primarily. We've made the exception for the walkway because it would be a small area, and it was to accommodate being able to move the larger bins that are on wheels and stuff now. To go all the way down the side of the house, I would be afraid that we would create a bit of a stormwater runoff issue.
Terry, looking at the photo that you have on the screen, technically the property to the left, they're in violation of our code presently.
The one on the left in this particular picture, because some were from the front of the house, some were the back, the left is the property that is the new construction.
Right. Wouldn't the property on the right also be in violation?
Yes, it would, but it had so much vegetation on it that the code officer didn't realize that there was all rock in there.
Okay, so they're both in violation technically. Okay, thanks.
So as far as that curbing piece, is that legal?
If you're going to have the rock, you probably do need some sort of a way to, maintain it within, contain it within the area, so, I don't think that would create an issue with it.
Okay, because it looks like it's, almost tied into the neighbors.
It does,
probably is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
pretty much is, yes.
So are you recommending to go back and talk with Mark and then come back with the?
And take
Yeah,
it to
what
the
I'd like to
committees.
do is take it to the planning commission, get some input from them, also then take all of that and sit down with Mark, have a discussion with him.
Yeah.
Would you-
Absolutely.
Can you explore alternate materials during that conversation as well?
Okay. Do you need a
Yep.
motion?
No, we have consensus to move forward. I think that's fine.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Recommendation from city officers, Howard,
No, first budget public hearing, 5:01 tonight.
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 Tonight. See ya.
I have nothing further, and I presume that I'm excused from tonight's meeting.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. City clerk.
Okay, we have two items under nominations. We do have a vacancy on the Punta Gorda Isles Canal Advisory Committee, and two gentlemen that are interested in serving, Mr. Frederick Court and Dennis O'Brien.
Nominate both.
And also for the Utility Advisory Board. We have one position available, and Mr. Flom, who was here earlier today, could be nominated and appointed.
Nominate and appoint, Mr. Second.
We have a motion second to nominate and appoint Mr. Flom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
take two?
Carried unanimously.
Yes. Is there enough?
Take two.
Next, we have appointments, and I'm passing out some forms for tabulating. I don't know if that may be too many, but. There will be appointments, let's see. First, we have the Code Enforcement Board, one position available, and two gentlemen who are interested in serving, Mr. Charles Council and Mr. William Brennan.
So we're to write code enforcement on here, right?
Yes.
We
thank
take
you.
two, I see.
And then we will also have an appointment under Planning Commission, so
And we just write down one name for code enforcement?
one name for Code Enforcement, And then Mr. Council and Mr. Brennan.
Do anybody need more forms?
We just need two,
I
right?
have extras.
No fair voting twice.
Vote early, vote often.
And then plan.
And then also, we have also an appointment pending for Planning
All right,
Commission.
hold on.
Okay,
Let me
sorry.
tabulate this
Yes,
first.
thank you.
I was pushing it. My fault.
And the appointee is Mr. Council.
And next we have planning.
Now,
We have one seat available on Planning Commission. Two parties have expressed an interest in serving, Ms. Lynn Matthews and Mr. Gary Skillicorn. So if you would, please,
Write planning and your name, and then one of those two names.
thank you, Madam Mayor.
Erasing?
Those are Chicago votes.
Yeah.
And the appointee is Ms. Matthews.
Anything else? Okay, policy and legislation, I don't think I have anything, except we are having a budget meeting at 5:01 PM. Please come back. And then we're gonna take council member comments. Kim?
I want to remind everyone that this weekend is the Big Orange Music Festival, so if you haven't gotten your tickets, it's going to be fun. And also, I've been doing a lot of things around the city of Punta Gorda lately, and it just reminds me how much I love it here and all of our citizens. We have a really wonderful town. That's all.
Thanks.
Nothing, thank you.
Go Cubs, otherwise I'll wait till this afternoon.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, citizens' comments, any topic, please come to this podium here, state your name.
Good morning, Harvey Goldberg, City of Punta Gorda. My comments pertain to the Punta Gorda Police Department and the city and in the Charlotte Sun newspaper regarding the unfortunate tragedy that occurred several weeks ago. First, I'd like to congratulate our city manager for the article that he put in the weekly highlights report and it was published in this morning's newspaper. I thought it accurately and clearly stated the city's position on a number of those issues that were misrepresented, I believe, by the Sun newspaper in the past. I think it was nice that there was a positive article in the newspaper this morning about the chief's coffee with the chief, written by a staff writer. I personally take issue, and I'm really concerned with the writings from the editors and the publisher of the newspaper. It appears to me that the Sun newspaper has taken on the self-anointed role of being the judge, jury, and executioner in this entire affair. And I think that is very, very poor journalism. Even to the extent where they've called for the chief's resignation, and to the extent that they've even identified a person who would replace the chief, completely disregarding city policy and practice, disregarding the Bill of Rights and due process that we live by in this country. I believe that the newspaper should be reporting the news and not trying to make the news. And it's very disappointing that they're doing just the opposite and continuing to stir the pot. And I just wanted to make that comment for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey.
Citizens' comments, any topic. Please come to this podium, state your name. Seeing none, we are adjourned. 10:31.